let's go back over here. That was all the news that was in the document. I didn't have anything else.
Yeah.
So yeah, let me close these and we can chat. All right, so you've got your Persona 5 Tactica finished. Didn't that come out last week?
2 weeks.
Oh, 2 weeks. Okay.
November 17, 2 Fridays ago.
2 Fridays ago. Okay.
Yeah.
How'd it go? Didn't that game got like pretty good reviews? So how'd it go?
Yeah, it's like low 80s or high 70s
Yeah.
on Meta, I think, which is like fine. It's a spin-off.
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
It's
Yeah,
a
that's fine.
spin-off, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Persona 5 Tactica. Overall fun game. I like it. I think I agree with the reviews. To me, it's like, again, on my rating scale, where like average 5 is like average or like a mediocre game. Persona 5 Tactica is probably like, I think 7. I think 7's about right. Maybe it's a 6 or a 7.
Okay.
It is a fun game, and I like the mechanics. Problem number 1 with the biggest problem with the game, and honestly one of the only problems with the game, in my opinion, game is way too easy. Holy shit, it's a joke.
But isn't there are there difficulties?
And that's, well, yes, there are. However, I played on the highest difficulty, and it's still way too easy.
Well, there you go.
I started on, there's 5 difficulties. There's safe, which is the easiest, which is like the enemies probably don't even attack you.
There's one enemy on every map.
Safe, easy, normal, hard, and merciless. Okay. I started on hard, and I was like, damn, this is easy. And then I went up to merciless, so I was like, damn, this is still easy. Like,
I don't know. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. The game is just way too easy.
Okay.
The story is pretty good. I think it's more Persona 5. It's kind of what you expect, but there are some interesting twists and turns of this story that are cool. And yeah, the story's pretty good. It doesn't, well, I won't say it doesn't overstay its welcome, because the last 5 hours of the game are just kind of like of a slog. But
okay.
But the story is good. I quite enjoyed it. Gets going a little slow, but in the mid game, like Kingdom, there's 4 like worlds, they could call them kingdoms in this game. Kingdom 1, 2, 3, 4.
Sure.
Story is the best in Kingdoms 2 and 3.
Okay.
There is basically no story in Kingdom 4. They kind of shoot all their bullets in Kingdom 3. And then in true Shin Megami Tensei / Persona fashion, you kind of defeat what you think is the villain, and then it's like, nope, here comes God, we gotta kill God now. And then Kingdom 4 is literally just like, you're not actually climbing a tower, but I'll just say, quote unquote, climbing the tower to get to God so you can kill God.
Yeah, sure.
There's 9 battles, there's 6 normal battles, and a refight with each of the 3 previous bosses, which I did not need to do, because the bosses are just like, the second one was like pretty decent, because it's more like puzzly and it's more like a normal battle, but the first and the third boss are just like, they're just boring. They're just big balls of hit points. They have like some very telegraphed attacks that are easy to avoid and like do the mechanics, but yeah, it's just like they tried with the bosses, but they're too easy. And the final boss has some cool mechanics, but again, like, it just has so many. It takes like an hour to beat the final boss on the hardest difficulty. It just has so many hit points. You had like the first phase had like 5,000 hit points, and the second one had like almost 10,000. And it's like, and just so you know, like, your characters with their most powerful attacks, you get 4 characters in a battle at the end of the game.
Yep.
Your characters do maybe like 250 to 300 damage per attack, and you don't always get to attack the boss, because he like summons add-ins or some like moving platforms and shit like that, so you don't always get to attack.
You're not just hitting him all the time.
Yeah.
I don't really like the idea of an hour on like a tactics-based game like this to beat a boss. Like a whole
Yeah,
map?
most of the maps, like honestly in this game are like not that long. They're pretty
Yeah.
snappy.
Yeah.
They're pretty snappy. The bosses are just like big bags of hit points. And maybe on a lower difficulty they have way less hit points. Like
Sure.
that was one of the big differences between hard and merciless. Like the enemies had way more hit points on
Yep.
merciless than they do a little bit more damage, but like not significantly.
Mhm.
And that's where I think they kind of went wrong with the difficulty. I think on merciless they maybe wouldn't even need to turn up the hit points that much from hard. They just need to make the enemies do way more damage.
Got it.
And the interesting about this game, okay, it's a cover-based shooter, so it's like or cover-based tactics game.
Yeah,
so it's
sure.
like XCOM or like Mario and Rabbids.
Mhm.
And the main thing with this game is like the main mechanic of the game, and it's very Persona-y, is if you hit an enemy who is out of cover, you get what's called a one more. The person who hit that enemy gets another turn. So you get to move again and attack again.
Okay.
But once an enemy is downed, so you've gotten a one more off that enemy, you can't get another one more off that same enemy.
Right.
And then after you get a one more, you can do what's called a triple threat. It's this game's all-out attack,
Yep.
where you have your 3 party members basically draw a triangle like with their positions, and if you have a downed enemy within that triangle, all the enemies in that triangle take a ton of damage. And on anything but merciless, a triple threat pretty much one shots all the enemies in the triangle.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like the main mechanic, which also makes movement the best stat in this game. In a lot of tactics games, movement's the best stat, but movement is 100% the best stat in this game.
Yep. Because you got to build the triangle.
Yeah, you have to have at least you want to make the triangle as big as possible, so
Yeah.
you kind of want to spread your team out. And then usually you want like one character that's kind of like the point of the triangle that goes like as far as they possibly can away to make this big ass triangle, and then kill as many enemies as possible with that. So yeah, down enemy, make big triangle, profit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's the main mechanic of the game. And enemies can do it to you if your characters are out of cover and the enemy shoots you, that enemy gets a one more as well.
Yep.
But the thing with the cover in this game is that if you're in cover and an enemy shoots you from like the side or behind you, and this goes for you too, if you shoot them from the side or behind them, you still get like the cover bonus. You take damage, but you still take like vastly reduced damage as if you were in cover, even if they're like behind you, and like technically you have, like realistically you have no cover in relation to them.
But you're flanking them. Like the whole point of like the tactics games. Like look, I have XCOM. In XCOM, if you're flanking them, like that's a flank. You get like bonuses to hit, but also like you can get criticals. So there's an incentive to try and flank somebody in the game, so that they don't get their bonuses anymore for cover. They're in a position where you can get their critical hits. Like that's kind of the point. That's like why you would flank in a game like that. In a game like this, you flank, you get the hit. Like I imagine you have a better chance to hit.
There's no hit chance in this. There's no hit chance in this game. If you are behind like full cover and they're shooting at you, you just take no damage. It's blocked. And same if you shoot at an enemy that's in full cover. If they're in like half cover, you do reduce damage. The
problem is there's no Overwatch system. Okay.
There's no Overwatch fire. Yeah.
So
except one character has an ability that allows them to do Overwatch fire.
Yeah.
But the enemies don't have that. Though.
So I guess allowing that flanking bonus wouldn't be the best idea, because you can't like Overwatch. In situations where somebody could flank, you would go Overwatch in XCOM and be like, okay, like I'm gonna stand pat in Overwatch so that person is like, that person can't just easily move out of cover and try and flank me. Like I want to be able to counterattack. But I can see why you wouldn't have the flank in this case, because there's no way for the character to Overwatch outside of a special ability. that would prevent a flank. Like that would make flanking really easy, which would also mean movement is really powerful too. So I guess,
which is what I said. Movement is the best stat in the game.
So I can see why they wouldn't put a flanking bonus in this game after knowing a bit more. But
yeah,
in tactics games, like flanking is a tactic. So it's strange that a tactics based game, when I would play one, like I'm sure there's other tactics games where flanking isn't a thing, but when I play it, like I expect flanking because it's tactics. Like flanking's a tactic, so what you should be doing because it's cover based. So you want to flank the cover person and get an incentive off that. To not get incentives off flanking is strange when I play a tactics game.
You can melee enemies that are in cover or out of cover, but if you melee an enemy that is in cover, you don't get a one more, but you knock them out of cover, your character moves into the space that they were in. So your character moves into cover if you melee an enemy that's in cover.
But it's still, it's an interesting design choice to not have like, I'm behind you with your cover, so I'm flanking you. I should get a bonus.
So technically you should have no cover because...
Technically you have no cover because my perspective of you is you don't have cover anymore because I'm behind you.
Yeah.
So to not...
And this is the exact problem that Ghost just said. The normal mooks, which are, probably at least 50% of the enemies that you encounter, probably even more than that, are just dudes with guns.
Yeah.
And even though their guns, for the most part, look like they have a bayonet on them, they don't have a melee attack.
Yeah, they don't melee.
All they do is they sit back and cover and they shoot at you. And they just do nothing. They just do nothing. They're no threat. Like...
It just... This seems like, to me, hearing it, and I don't know what other way to put it. This is like a game where it's like, unless you really like Persona, why wouldn't you just play XCOM? This is the kind of thing that I think of as like, okay, but you like Persona, so like you want to play it because it's like a Persona game. You're getting an extension of the story. But for tactics sides, it's like, man, like, why wouldn't I just play XCOM? This just feels like a much worse XCOM. Hearing about certain aspects of it, besides just the fact that you're getting a Persona experience and you're getting like some differentiation, like the triangle system and all that. There's some differences. I'm not saying it's like the same thing.
Yeah.
But like,
the game is fun. Like, the game is fun. The gameplay is fun. It's just like, it's a tactics game, and it's not that challenging, even on the highest difficulty. As I said, the game is just way too easy on the highest difficulty. Like,
yeah, and I'm not saying you wouldn't play any other game that just has like a better version of it too. Yeah. But because you would play Persona Tactics if you like Persona, I just like, I wouldn't dispute that. But for somebody else that is like kind of a neutral Persona player and likes tactics games
and likes tactics or cover-based tactics games,
if you're kind of neutral over here, if you want a Persona story, like, yeah, you should play this for sure. Go ahead and play it. But if you're looking for a tactic experience and you're neutral on Persona and maybe you liked a little bit, I'd be like, well, if you want tactics, I think you should just play XCOM. I think you should boot that up, play it. I think you're going to get a good tactics experience over there, even though XCOM's percentage to hit system will piss you off. It'll piss you off, but everything else about it, like fine-tuned experience for us. I think if you're a Persona player, this sounds like a game you play because you're getting a story that reflects Persona. You're getting like some mechanics that reflect Persona. So I just feel like from the outsider's perspective, like, man, I think I'd just play XCOM.
And the game, just so people are aware, the game took me about 30 hours to beat.
That's
29, 30.
That's good time. Yeah. That's good time on like even just like a tactics spin-off. Like that's
but as I said, the last kingdom, which was maybe 5-6 hours, was like pretty sloggy because there was no story. It was just like, we're climbing the tower and we gotta kill God at the end, and we refight all the bosses that we fought and just do more of the same. Like, there's no new enemies. It's just reusing mechanics and stuff from like the previous 3 kingdoms, and it's just like
that seemed.
It was a little pad. The last arc was like a little patty. It was like,
they're padding the stats. You're padding the stats. You're padding the stats on that runtime, and
so the gameplay's fun. Like, and there are it's not like you don't have to think in this game. Like, you do have to think about your moves. Positioning is important.
Oh.
Drawing big ass triangles is important. Not getting caught out of cover is important. There are certain enemies that are a threat. There's these big like melee there's these big like melee enemies. They don't take cover. However, when you hit them the first time, they do like a counter attack. So you don't down them when you hit them the first time. They do like a counter attack where they jump at you, and if they hit your character, you take a bunch of damage, obviously. So and those guys can punch you out of cover. So, you know, those guys are a bit of a threat. There's ways to deal with them, obviously, and you know, if you just down a normal mook and then like triangle, they're in the triangle, you can kill them that way without really have to interact with them. So there is tactics in this game, and there are certain they call them quests. They're these like optional missions that are usually very short, and there's a few that are like, they're basically puzzles where it's like you have to kill all the enemies in one turn, and there's like, you have to find the correct way to like get one mores and like position your guys correctly, so you pretty much get like 1 or 2 big triangles that kill all the enemies on the map, and those are really cool. But yeah, the game is just, as I said, the story is good. It's fun to play. If you're a Persona fan, you've got another game with these characters, and there's a couple new characters who, you know, one of them who ends up kind of being the main character as far as the story goes, like, is kind of weird, and you don't really get what they're about at first, but he really develops as a character, and you know, again, it ends up being like a good story revolved around this kind of new character that they introduce in this game. But yeah, the story's good. It's fun having another game with the Phantom Thieves from Persona 5. If you're a fan of it, the game's fun to play. Game's just way too easy. Even on the hard, I can't even imagine the game on, like, again, hard. I was like, this game's easy. Merciless, I'm like, okay, this is a little bit harder, but it's still too easy. So yeah, game needs like one more difficulty above Merciless at least. Yeah, but it's good. I mean, but I kind of agree with your assessment. If you're like a tactics fan, and don't really care about Persona or Persona 5, you're probably better off just playing XCOM.
Dude, you're probably just doing something else. But I mean, like, if you're a Persona person, that's the hard part, is like, the person you recommend this to likes tactics games, maybe neutrally, and as a Persona fan. Ooh,
it's a little niche.
Such a crossroads. Yeah, that's the tough part about these spin-offs that go into different niches, right? You're like, okay, we're gonna get tactics fans and Persona. It's like, oh, okay, interesting crossroad.
Yeah,
the game is also 50% or more story and dialogue. Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of story, which is,
so you better like Persona, which
is vast majority still images and, like, you know, talking heads, basically. So, which is, it's voiced for the most part, so, you know, a lot of voice acting, and they brought back all the voice actors from P5, so, you know,
that's good.
It's there. It's a good spin-off. It's just, for my taste, and I am a person who plays tactics game and likes tactics games, this game is way too easy. It's just way too easy.
Which is tough because you're playing a tactics game, I would imagine, for a challenge.
Yeah. You like to be challenged at least some of the time in a tactics game. You like to have to, like, think about your moves, and especially if you're playing on a high difficulty, a difficulty that is called Merciless, by the way, and the description is like, one wrong move spells defeat or something.
Spells doom. And you're like, oops, wrong move. And they're like,
along those lines. And believe me, I have turns occasionally where, like, I made a mistake and I had a guy that's out of cover and they didn't die. Like,
one wrong move. One wrong move, though. You better be careful.
Hot take: I like to have to use tactics when I play a tactics game.
And it's like, I mean, you're playing a tactics game. I feel like, you know, some degree you're probably using your noodle. So it's not really good to hear, like, I'm playing on a really hard difficulty and
the game's too easy.
Making mistakes isn't punished enough where I'm feeling like, okay, I need to 5D chess this. Interesting. Okay. Got it.